Before the flood rises, before the fire burns out of control, before the final opportunity slips through our fingers, there is a moment when humanity must wake up. That moment is not tomorrow. It is not in some distant future. That moment is now. When we look at the challenges of our time, one truth rises above all others. Unity is survival, not just an ideal. The storms that sweep across continents, the floods that submerge entire cities, the fires that devour forests, and the droughts that starve communities do not ask for passports or pause at borders. They move freely, disregarding the lines we have drawn on maps, reminding us of something we often forget, that humanity shares one fragile home, and the fate of one is tied inseparably to the fate of all. Climate vulnerability is not a distant issue for some faraway nation. It is a lived reality, growing more urgent each day, and it has already begun to reshape the way the world must think about security, responsibility, and survival. The poorest often suffer first and most. When systems collapse under the weight of storms or heat, it is those with the fewest resources who are left with nowhere to run, no savings to rebuild, no infrastructure to protect them. Yet while they may carry the heaviest burden in the present, the storm does not remain confined. Its consequences ripple outward. Crops fail in one nation, and food prices soar in another. Floods displace thousands in one region, and migration pressures build across borders. Fires consume forests in one hemisphere, and the air grows unbreathable in cities half a world away. We cannot pretend these disasters belong to someone else. Injustice in one corner of the earth becomes instability in every corner. Preparedness must therefore be more than a national priority. It must be a global commitment. It is not enough for wealthier nations to build their own walls, strengthen their own levees, or secure their own food supplies while ignoring the vulnerability of others. The interconnectedness of our world ensures that what happens to the least of us eventually reaches the strongest of us. Unity here is not a dream. It is a strategy for survival. When nations share knowledge, technology, and resources, they build resilience not just for themselves, but for humanity as a whole. Climate change is often spoken of in terms of science, numbers, and projections. We hear about degrees of warming, sea level rise, and percentages of risk. But beneath those numbers are human faces. A farmer watching his land turn to desert, a mother carrying her child through floodwaters, a family forced to abandon the home that held generations of memories. These stories remind us that this crisis is not abstract. It is profoundly human. And if the problem is human, then so is the solution. Compassion is not weakness in this fight. It is the most powerful force we have. It pushes us to act not only when our own lives are threatened, but when others are in peril. It bridges the gap between nations, turning empathy into policy and solidarity into action. True progress will never be measured by the wealth of one nation standing alone while others fall into ruin. Progress will be measured by whether humanity as a whole can withstand the storms ahead. Can we create systems of relief that are swift and fair? Can we design cities that are resilient against disasters, yet sustainable for generations? Can we ensure that the poor are not abandoned to carry burdens they did not create? These are not just technical questions, they are moral ones, and the answer depends on whether we embrace unity as a necessity rather than an option. There is a temptation to believe that survival is individual, that as long as one has enough money, enough protection, enough preparation, then the suffering of others will not matter. But history shows otherwise. Pandemics, wars, financial collapses, and environmental disasters always teach the same lesson. Walls may hold for a moment, but sooner or later the tide rises higher than any barrier. Survival that excludes others is only temporary. Survival that includes others is enduring. Preparedness also means honesty. We cannot continue to deny the scale of what is coming. Pretending the problem is smaller than it is, delaying action, or treating climate change as someone else's responsibility is not just negligence, it is self-destruction. To be prepared, we must first acknowledge the reality, however uncomfortable it may be. Once we see clearly, we can act decisively, and decisive action is exactly what the moment demands. It is not too late, but the window is closing. Every year of inaction means more lives lost, more homes destroyed, more instability seeded across the globe. But every year of action, every step toward renewable energy, sustainable infrastructure, and global cooperation means lives saved, futures secured, and hope renewed. The choice is still in our hands, but the time to choose is rapidly running out. Imagine for a moment a different path. Imagine nations pooling their resources to build early warning systems that protect the most vulnerable. Imagine communities working across borders to restore forests, rivers, and coastlines that shield us from disaster. Imagine industries competing not to exploit the planet faster, but to innovate solutions that heal it. Imagine schools teaching children not only how to succeed individually, but how to safeguard the world collectively. This is not fantasy. It is the practical vision of a humanity that has finally learned that unity is not charity, but survival. The storms of tomorrow will test us, but they will not destroy us if we stand together. They will expose our weaknesses if we remain divided, but they will reveal our greatest strengths if we unite. The lesson is clear, the stakes are high, and the time is now. We must recognize that disasters, climate change, and injustice are not isolated problems. They are global realities that demand global answers. We must embrace compassion not as a fleeting emotion, but as the foundation of our strategy. And above all, we must choose unity, not because it sounds noble, but because without it, there will be no survival. The world must learn this lesson before it is too late. Not after the seas have risen beyond control, not after millions are displaced with nowhere to turn, not after famine and conflict spread across continents. The time to learn is now, the time to act is now, and the time to prepare is now. Our shared future depends on it. Destiny is shaped by choices, not chance. It is a truth as old as time itself, yet one we often try to avoid. We look to fate, to destiny, to luck, hoping that somehow the storms of life will pass us by, that somehow the challenges ahead will resolve themselves, that somehow tomorrow will deliver solutions without our effort. But history has never rewarded passivity. Every great transformation, every moment of progress, every victory over crisis was born not out of chance, but out of choice. Humanity now stands at one of those defining moments where what we decide today will echo through generations. Climate vulnerability is one of the greatest tests of our era, and it does not wait for us to be ready. The planet is shifting, the environment is destabilizing, and communities are being reshaped by forces larger than themselves. Floods devastate villages, droughts stretch on for years, storms intensify, and fires rage with unprecedented ferocity. None of these disasters are matters of luck. They are the consequences of choices made over decades, choices to exploit without balance, to ignore warnings, to prioritize short-term gains over long-term stability. And just as past choices brought us here, today's choices will determine whether tomorrow is a future of resilience or ruin. The temptation is to wait, to hope that someone else will rise, that leaders will act, that science will rescue us in the nick of time. Yet waiting has always been the enemy of progress. When we delay, the window narrows, the risks grow, and the cost multiplies. There will be no miraculous tomorrow if today is wasted. The storms we fail to prepare for will not care about our excuses. The floods we ignore will not pause out of pity. The fires we allow to spread will not wait for us to find courage. Destiny will not bend to hesitation. It will only bend to action. Responsibility begins with the recognition that we are not powerless. Each of us, as individuals, as communities, as nations, holds the ability to influence the path ahead. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to act despite fear. We may be overwhelmed by the scale of the crisis, but surrender is not an option. The future does not belong to those who sit idle, watching the world unravel. It belongs to those who choose to rise, who take responsibility, who act decisively when it matters most. Consider how history remembers those who faced turning points. It does not remember the bystanders who waited for someone else to lead. It remembers the ones who stepped forward, the ones who took risks, the ones who refused to let fear or uncertainty dictate their choices. Our moment is no different. The climate crisis is not merely an environmental issue, it is a moral and generational test. It asks us whether we are willing to sacrifice convenience today for survival tomorrow, whether we will embrace responsibility or shift the burden to those not yet born. Every choice matters. Choosing renewable energy over fossil fuels is more than a technical decision. It is a statement of values. Choosing to invest in resilient infrastructure is not just an economic calculation. It is a promise to protect the vulnerable. Choosing to reduce waste, to conserve water, to protect forests and oceans may seem small, but multiplied by millions of lives, they become the difference between catastrophe and sustainability. The future is built one decision at a time, and each decision is within our reach. Some will say it is too late, that the damage is already done, that our choices no longer matter. But resignation is the cruelest deception. While it is true that some consequences cannot be undone, it is also true that every step we take now changes the scale of what is to come. We may not be able to prevent every storm, but we can choose whether it becomes a catastrophe or a challenge. We may not stop the seas from rising, but we can choose whether cities drown or adapt. We may not undo every mistake of the past, but we can choose whether we repeat them or learn from them. To surrender is to guarantee the worst. To act is to open the possibility of something better. The courage we need is not only found in the halls of governments or the boardrooms of corporations, it is found in the daily choices of ordinary people. The farmer who adapts sustainable practices, the teacher who educates children about stewardship, the activist who raises their voice, the community that invests in preparedness, all of these choices build a future where humanity is not a victim of chance, but a steward of its own destiny. We must also understand that responsibility is shared. No single nation can face climate vulnerability alone. No single community can build preparedness in isolation. The atmosphere does not recognize borders. Pollution in one place affects air in another. The waters that rise do not stop at coastlines. The fires that burn forests remove a shield that once protected the entire planet. Our choices are linked, which means our solutions must be collective. The future we seek will be built not through division but through cooperation, not through isolation but through unity. Time is not on our side. The longer we wait, the narrower our options become. But time is also an ally if we act with urgency. The choices of today still hold the power to reshape tomorrow. Innovation exists. Technology exists. Knowledge exists. What remains is the courage to apply them without delay, without excuses, without waiting for someone else to bear the burden first. Destiny will not be written by chance. It will not be determined by luck or fate or coincidence. It will be written by the hands of those who are alive today, by the leaders who decide policies, by the communities that decide priorities, by the individuals who decide how to live and what to value. The question is not whether destiny will unfold. The question is who will shape it and with what courage. We can choose a future where disasters define us, or we can choose a future where preparedness empowers us. We can choose regret, or we can choose responsibility. We can choose to wait for someone else, or we can choose to be the ones who act. And in the end, it will not be chance that decides which world we inherit. It will be the sum of the choices we make right now, in this moment, before it is too late. The time has come to stop waiting for someone else to lead. The time has come for each of us to become the answer we've been searching for. What the world must learn before it's too late is that destiny is not written in the stars. It is written in our choices. So let us choose wisely, let us choose boldly, and let us choose now.